Good morning. Welcome to the meeting of the Infrastructure Committee. The notice was properly posted on December 22nd, 2023. All three districts are represented. The first item on the agenda, number one, discussion possible action regarding the minutes of December 11th, 2023.
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Charles, I'm not gonna
Okay,
vote on this.
I'll-
I'm gonna abstain because I was not here and I did not have a chance to review the.
I will
video.
understand. I'll second that item. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
All right, item number two, discussion possible action regarding the TIP 2 and TIP 2A budget. Stacy, any changes on those?
No changes.
All right, no action. Discussion and possible action regarding capital improvements list to include but not limited to project scope, funding, schedule, and incidentals. Stacy, any changes there?
No changes.
All right, no action. Any questions? Item number four, discussion possible action regarding the ARPA project list to include but not limited to scope, funding, schedule, and incidentals. Do you want to defer to the later agenda item on White's report?
Yes.
Okay, all right, no action there. Departmental items. Item number five, discussion and possible action to relocate court services employees to the 4th floor of the Juvenile Justice Center. Keith Monroe. Or
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I guess I'll start. That's what you see up there is a portion of the 4th floor at Juvenile that Keith and I have. We found that several months ago as a location potential for us to move into. We went and looked at it again 2 weeks ago. Last week, I think it was last week, and we also discussed it last time we were in here. That again, I'll reiterate that we want to be here. We want to be on site somewhere here to be here for the courts, for the judges, to fully do our job and our function. However, at the same time, we also understand that from what we've looked at and walked around, Keith can attest to this. We've been looking at space for what, 4 months, probably driving around, walking around, and just with the changes in the construction and people moving, there's just doesn't appear to be a large space for the department as a whole to go into. So in the meantime, as you know, we've moved a portion of our staff on the 9th floor in the courthouse. We're going to, I don't know if that's going to be discussed today, I think another portion of our staff on the 1st floor.
This is an agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Potentially the 1st floor snack bar to put about 4 staff down there, which leaves the remaining staff. And again, if there's not space here on site, we're willing to do what's best for everybody. And if we have to move off site, hopefully that would be a temporary thing, that when something is found here, we could come back. And so I think that's what's in front of you today, that space highlighted for us.
And Keith, I think you've got an updated map. Is that right? Do you have something to add and to submit?
Up to speed here. So after meeting with Grant and Hannah out at the.
And Keith, if I may, just last meeting, just for Colton and Cody, Hannah was charged with, there are several different entities that are now potentially moving to the 4th floor of the juvenile center. So Hannah was tasked with bringing us a map that included space for everyone. I think that might be, so go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, so when talking with Grant and Hannah and her staff, she developed a floor plan showing exactly what she has now. The concern is if we don't take into account Hannah's people, and forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, and certainly correct me if I'm not.
And do you want to submit, I think you've got copies of those maps here if you want to submit those. I'll entertain a motion to receive the floor plans that Keith is submitting for consideration.
The second page is what Hannah currently occupies. Motion received.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Moving second, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
So
All right.
Keith, this first page, what am I looking at?
Look at the second page.
Okay.
You'll see a yellow highlighted area.
Right, that's the space that your staff is taking up currently, right? Yeah.
So the concern here is that if we don't take into consideration collectively, Hannah's needs, Grant's needs, and then also perhaps identify a location for the state auditor to go, someone at the end of the day, when relocated to the fourth floor, is going to either not have enough space or not have the right kind of space. I think it's important that Hannah do her job since she's managing that entire thing. I think since she occupies the most real estate there, it makes sense for her to plug her numbers and her people in on the fourth floor in a thoughtful way too, just like Grant. So we've developed, using not so primary colors, a floor plan here that you'll see. That is the first page. That area in pink is what the district attorney will occupy when they go to the fourth floor. That area in blue is what Hannah's staff will occupy when they move to the fourth floor. The purple outlined squares represent a shared meeting space or conference rooms. The green spaces are unoccupied and would provide at least square footage enough for Grant's team and the state auditor.
Is the state auditor interested in moving out to this location?
Yeah.
On a short-term basis or a permanent location?
I haven't clarified that with her. I know that she is looking for the county to locate and provide space for her. Whether or not we do that, can do that, should do that, I can't answer. So all I'm doing is identifying possible locations for groups to go. I hope we'll be starting on the ICB quickly, and a relocation is necessary before we can begin that.
Yeah, I get that. What I'm kind of getting at though is, Grant had mentioned that being over here may be temporary. I mean, we don't know exactly if we're going to be able to find other space and locate over here. Hannah's folks are going to be there permanently until, we, move the whole operations,
Right.
if that were ever to occur. So I think we need to make sure that your staff, that we locate you guys in such a manner that it's going to be efficient for you in the long term. And then if there is some, spaces that can be available temporary or long term, that's great. But I don't want to do something for some temporary space that's going to impede your operations, that you're going to, and then we have to come back in and do an upheaval when that temporary space isn't needed again.
That's what I was trying to avoid with this. So when we first talked about it and we walked it with Grant, we actually walked the yellow area that's outlined currently on your agenda, but in front of you, it's this 4318 block right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we originally had talked about with Grant because it's pretty much move-in ready. Problem with that is when we started actually looking at everything, and when we came to infrastructure before about the DA's move, Joe was very specific on what needs to be built out, how much is the cost, what will you need to move, and depending on how quickly you may or may not choose to put courtrooms out there, additional build out would be required for my staff to move up. And so that's when I was talking with Keith and then we walked through it with Grant, I said, this is great. And we can put Grant there. We could put the auditors somewhere. We could do all of those pieces, but then there won't be enough individual office space for my staff to move up, which would require us waiting on offices to be built out and things of that nature. So that's when we kind of went this route instead and said, okay, if my staff were to move, where would we have to occupy? along with what we've already designated for the DA and then what's left.
So this is kind of moving ready for you guys, is what you're saying, on the blue space?
For the most part, we'll need to do internet drops. That'll have to be something. And I know Chris Ponder and Rich were out last week to look at that. We'll need to do some internet drops. I have gotten estimates for what it'll cost us to paint, which will be roughly $1,200 just in materials if we're supplying the labor. If we were to recarpet the fourth floor, it'd be $98,000 and change, which no one has right now. So we would move in with the existing carpet, and then we would renovate, obviously, as my budget would allow.
But not moving walls, if you will,
Correct.
just to move in. So-
Correct. Yes, we could. I could move my staff in now without any build out.
Okay.
I think another point that needs to be made here is that Hannah and her staff have to be there. There aren't any other locations where she can occupy.
Right, that's what I was getting.
There
at,
are some
yeah.
other possibilities for Grant and certainly for the state auditor.
Yeah, and then just one caveat with Cody, you're probably wearing a Colton. The auditor needs to be, for lack of a better, in a county. They have to share the shared server, so they need to be in a building where they have access, which i.e. would be a county building somewhere. Anyway,
Well, I know, okay.
Yeah.
There were discussions from folks in that office in the past of whether they were going to move off-site or stay there. So I didn't know if they were still having those conversations.
Marla reached out to me, and then she's been present at the last couple of infrastructure meetings when we knew this was going to be on the agenda. I think probably the holiday is maybe why she's not here today, but she's reached out to me, and from what I understand, this was her intent.
Okay. Yeah, and not to, to speak for Marla, but my recollection, and it could be wrong, was that, Marla didn't necessarily, I think she was open or maybe wanted to go to a different location, but she was deferring to John from a long-term standpoint because she assumed that John would probably be taking over for her at some point. So she wanted him weighing in. Now he's down in Ada, but wanted him to weigh in, and he wanted to stay on site. I know that last I talked to him about it, that's what he wanted.
when you say on site, you mean not an ICB building, obviously, or
Well, yes.
oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but this was
Way back.
this was
Yeah.
several months
Yeah,
ago.
I understand. Okay.
Before all of this had occurred.
Is-
But yeah, so I didn't know if they were just wanting to do something else downtown and get
She's
some
expressed
other
to me
office
that
space.
this was fine, but I got the feeling that they're just happy to have space
Okay.
that's adequate.
Yeah.
And when we say adequate, what you were talking about, is this we can kind of make this work in this space 4318 to 4301, that
I haven't
box?
reviewed this space with her. What she expressed to me was 10-ish to 15 offices as far as space goes. This would provide them with 5 individual offices and a large cubicle area with maybe 20 cubicles in it. I think it would more than meet their needs that
Right.
she expressed to me, but I have not reviewed this with her.
Sorry, I was going back to your space because
Oh, sorry.
4318 to 4301, that kind of square. I think that's contemplated that your staff would move up there.
Correct.
And you said that you wouldn't have to do a whole lot.
Yes, correct.
Is there going to need to be much done in the near future, though, to that space?
For my staff or for others?
Yeah, because there's a difference.
Standard wear
There's a
and
difference
tear.
between, we can make it work
Sure.
for a short term, but we're gonna really need to kind of do some other stuff later.
There's
versus,
not
oh no, this
any-
is great. We just need
There's
to
not
do it.
any like walls being moved, any major renovations, no. Now, paint, carpet, the occasional half
General
wall
upkeep.
that we could do, general upkeep. DHS has rented that space for a very long time, and sometimes clientele, employees, things like that, it's not in the best shape. But there's nothing structurally or anything that like major that we would have to do. It's just general upkeep, deep cleaning, new
Okay.
paint, things like that.
I didn't want you moving in and then in 6 months, 9 months, having to pull people out so we can do more stuff.
I think it's safe to say, though, that any kind of a move, regardless of who it is going to require some work, some changes, and we always seem to make it happen. It's just getting there is the trouble. So Is Grant gonna be happy? Probably not. Are her staff gonna be happy at the end of the day? Probably not. You know, the state auditor the same way, but we'll do what we need to do to help them do their jobs and give them the best space that we can.
Well, we've got two agenda items here, item 5 and 6. 5 is talking about space at juvenile, and item 6 is talking about space on the first floor of the courthouse. Are we anticipating those working in conjunction, that they need both of those locations, or is
Yeah.
this an either or?
The space on the first floor is just to accommodate the needs of the courts whenever someone needs to come get a GPS and ankle monitor immediately, or, yeah, Grant.
The
can
answer,
probably speak
Cody,
to
is
it, but
yes. Both
in conjunction
spaces.
with each other. Thank you, Keith.
So to get the
Not
ankle
an either
monitors
or.
and that kind of stuff, they couldn't go to 9?
No,
Or-
no, because of the,
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
yeah. So we can't, so that's why there is some additional space up on 9. However, and you can put people there, however, they can't really do their job at all because defendants would not be allowed to go up there. So you couldn't do your job. You couldn't function with case management meetings up on 9. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So back to the space on here, is the north bank in green, is what is being recommended for court services? Is that correct on the map that you submitted?
Yes. And currently, that is all cubicle space,
Okay.
is my understanding. That is way more space, I think, than what you have currently on the 3rd floor in the ICB,
Uh-huh.
and perhaps lends itself to any configuration that makes sense. So there's way more opportunity to do things here just because of the amount of square footage.
So that's adequate space for you on that north bank?
I've never seen it. The only thing I've seen is what obviously it's on the agenda item and what's been attached, because
Okay.
that's what's been in the past for several months has been identified for us as what would be needed to accommodate us. So I've never even looked at what
Okay.
we're looking at, and I don't know if it sounds like build outs and fixing things so there's an actual office and for confidential type meetings and different things that we have to hold with district attorney investigators and other folks.
Do you
Would
want
happen, wouldn't happen. I don't know.
you want to get your eyes on that then before we go through with any, I guess, motion to relocate you out there in that space? I would.
I certainly can. And
Yeah.
that's under the assumption that the space that we've already identified is no longer an option.
It's
Yeah.
not that it's not. It's the fact that if you're talking temporary or not temporary with Grant, unless the county has significant additional funds to build out a lot more individual offices, should we move Grant into the 4318 to the 4301 block space, I'll need 15 more offices. And I don't have the funding for that. So it's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. If Grant goes in that section, fine. But then what I'm concerned about is then courtrooms are starting to come, and then my staff who have to be in that building are displaced, and I don't have anywhere to put them.
Yeah, we can't solve one temporary problem to create a long-term problem.
Yeah, to your point.
Yeah.
So is it, just so I know, then is it safe to say that in the event we do move out here, that it is for sure temporary, or is this a permanent move? Are we temporary out there until space here can be identified, or are we just, and I'm fine with either way. We will, like I've said before in the past, I've been saying for several months, whatever we need to do, we'll do, and we'll figure it out, and we'll do a good job at it. But at the same time, we kind of need to be able to have space to accommodate staff and do what we need for the courts and the judges and that as well. And so, like I said, we've been for months have been trying to find space here on site to accommodate a department, and there's just, I get it. There's just not, unless something I don't.
Yeah, I don't think we have the answer to that, if it's temporary or permanent. And I know that you looked at the jail and at one time it said that was maybe preferable to this. So maybe between now and next infrastructure could identify what makes the most sense with the variables that we know for sure
Yeah,
right
we could
now.
go back and look there. Like I said, we looked at space at the jail previously. I know there were some issues with it.
accommodate your entire staff?
Well, I think the issue is there's already other departments in that area, and so
It's kind of a bullpen area, right? And it would be a bunch of different
would-
groups working.
yeah, it wouldn't be a core, unless things have changed in the meantime, it would be shared by other jails departments and staff and kind of coming and going
Well,
and again, if things are temporary, we can figure stuff out.
Well, I think that's important is to know whether, now, conditions change, right? So just because we think something is temporary, sometimes it winds up being, permanent. And sometimes when we think something's permanent, it winds up being temporary, and then, we make adjustments. But if we can figure out what we're really thinking, is this temporary or permanent, that will help guide us on the type of adjustments that need to be made to the space, right? If you're going to be there, if the decision is that's where it's going to be permanently, then we probably want to throw up a little bit more things in there to make it permanent space, versus if it's just going to be something for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever, then maybe we do an office or two and then do more in kind of a bullpen type area, just if it's temporary and that works for you. But I think, to answer your question, I don't know. I use the word temporary because you had mentioned it. I don't know if we're looking at temporary or permanent. I think we kind of need to have that discussion and then kind of go from there. So you've got some staff that moved to 9 over there. We've got an agenda item on 6 that I understand we're talking about having people go to that location to
First
have
floor.
ankle monitors put on or whatever. So you could theoretically have staff working in that location permanently. If that were to occur, how many folks are we talking about that would then not have a space that
10.
you would need? Okay.
10.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to me before now, next meeting, to go take a look at this space and revisit the jail if you need to, just kind of make a decision moving forward. Does that make sense, or sound like a good way to
Yeah,
proceed?
I think we need to make sure that,
If the space is temporary, at least it's open and you can move him there tomorrow.
Right.
If the space is permanent, you can move him there tomorrow, and with the amount of square footage, you can have a construction project to accommodate him permanently
Yeah.
going on at the same time he occupies that. It may not be the best solution, but at least there's enough square footage there to do both.
yeah,
In the
but
meantime, we can rest assured that he won't be over in a demolition site in the ICB come sometime January.
I think that's a great point, but I don't know, you're not comfortable with committing to that today, are you? Or are you, Grant? For to go to
sounds like
this?
he needs to look at the space.
That's
but,
what I would think.
But
Yeah.
even if, so to Keith's point, if we move them, east to west on this north end in the green area, and there's construction going on, whether we move them all the way to the west, Hannah's got folks on that north end almost all the way to the east that are going to be coming and going through a construction zone. So it would
Well,
be
but not,
nice to
But
be
you're
able
not
to.
displacing anybody. The point is, you're not displacing anybody to construct individual offices if you need them. That can take
Right.
place. And the same thing is happening when DHS did their construction project on the 3rd floor.
yeah,
So those things can happen concurrently.
concurrently, right.
And there's so much square footage up there. It would be reasonable that we could locate other ways for employees to go that I don't think, whether we're building out a reception area for Grant or we're building offices, whatever we're doing, there's so many different ways in and out of those hallways. I don't think that it would impact their ability to work.
Okay, sounds good.
Also, contractors, if we get up there and Grant decides we need 10 specific offices, I don't think you're going to get contractors to get that job done before the move out deadline in the ICB. So I think in some ways you're kind of stuck with using this space as it is
Yeah.
until you define exactly what you want. It may not be a permanent location.
Yeah.
It may not work, and there may be problems that arise that were unforeseen. But at least we've gotten him out of the ICB in some location that is available, and we can move forward in that way.
When is that move out date?
The move out date was January 31st.
Okay. So we do have time to
Uh-huh.
Charles's point, for Grant to go over, look at this space, and then get this back on for the next infrastructure meeting.
You don't have time to build anything out specifically for him is what
Yeah.
needs to be pointed out here.
Right, but we wouldn't have time whether we made a decision on this today versus waiting until the next infrastructure. Correct?
What I'm wondering though is for, since BOCC meets a week from today, if maybe with a move upon with him touring and approving, liking the space over there, to go ahead and for him to move out there once he sees it, because like he says, he's got temporary space available for move-in immediately. All we need to do is the data drops, right? And it's ready to go.
I would rather have a couple conversations with Hannah and with Grant,
Okay.
let him take a look at. I just don't think that, unless I'm missing something, making a decision today versus waiting until the next infrastructure meeting, I don't think that's going to be impactful
Right.
on this at all, because we can still meet the move out date. And if we made the decision today and Grant went over and looked at it and said, no, I need these offices built, us making the decision today versus in a week or two, we're not gonna be able to get those offices built
Right.
in
And there's no
that amount of time, so.
There's no one area upstairs. I mean, you've all seen my offices that are nice on the second floor. There is no area upstairs that employees going to be like, I am so excited that I have gotten to move into this space. It's a little rough. It needs a little work. We're going to be building out whether Grant goes there, whether he goes in a different section, whether it's my employees, whether it's Marla and her staff. There is no space that is going to be perfect for any department. It's going to take a little bit of work. It's going to take moving around. So I just wanted to point out that there isn't any space on 4 that is just like, this is, a pristine, perfect area for one, including my staff, to go. It's kind of make it fit, make it work, because that's what needs to happen for courtrooms to go on to.
And so to that point, we've established the end of January is the drop dead date on moving out of ICB. When are we looking at Hannah's staff needing to move from the second floor to start a construction phase for the judiciary?
My guess is that's way on down the line because we have to engage an architect to develop plans for that entire floor, months and months and months there. I think the thing that's going to hurt us here is dancing on the precipice of indecision when it comes to available space and Grant moving in that direction. I think we can make this work. The more we delay, and I would encourage you to chart some forward movement here.
Well, so let's agree that, Grant, you're going to go out and take a look at the space then. Is that right? And then we'll have the same agenda item for next time
Yeah,
for,
we'll get out there as soon as possible.
Okay.
Again, just understand that this is just occurred like
Mhm.
This under my assumption was figured out quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And so it's just all of a sudden a overnight change. And so I'm just in my mind, I'm figuring out, okay, so where I've already identified who's going in which office for the last couple of weeks and who's going in which exact space, which is going to be storage and where's the copier going, it has now changed.
Yeah.
And again, I'm fine with that. We've been doing that for years. And I'm okay with it. We just got to
Well, so go look at the space.
and go take it and move in.
Go look at the space, and not to speak for Joe, but I will speak for Joe. District 1 has traditionally not been adverse to calling special meetings when special meetings are necessary, whether it's a meeting of infrastructure, PBA advisory, BET, any number of the committees that we have. If you're able to tour it and make a determination, Hannah's had a chance to have a conversation with you, everybody's on the same page, and this occurs well in advance of the next regularly scheduled infrastructure meeting, we can always call a special and knock this thing out. right? I mean, we don't necessarily have to wait until the next one, but I want to make sure that you're at least semi-comfortable with what we're talking about, because it looks to me like we're talking about making a decision on where you're going to go, and there may be a little bit of nuance here that we can, work out. And I want to make sure um, that we have those discussions before we just jump in. I don't think we're on the precipice of indecision, Keith. We will make a decision.
And Hannah, I said, are you both here the rest of this week? Are you here? Okay, great, cool, make that happen.
Yeah,
All
I would
right.
like to have
Yeah.
a conversation with Hannah. So,
All right.
motion to receive report.
Second? All right, it's been moved in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, item number 6, discussion and possible action to relocate court services employees to the first floor of the Oklahoma County Courthouse. And I've got the floor plan here to pass out. Keith, there's that. Sorry, no, I can do one.
Is this attached?
Okay.
Is this the attachment to the?
No, I don't believe there is an attachment to the.
There's a little paper clip on my agenda, so I assume there was an attachment.
There's not. It's not attached. Okay.
All right, motion to receive the document.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
So the yellow hatched area, is that what we were discussing?
Here's Cleo.
Bueller?
Does that
I
look
s- I
correct?
saw Ben Stein on an airplane one time.
Oh, yeah?
Does that look correct, Keith?
Yes,
Okay. Um,
the assigned figures here, when you take into consideration what we're looking at, I've done a rough calculation: walls, ceiling, lighting, flooring, doors, security, communications, in order to occupy that space, and an assigned figure of between $25,000 and $30,000. And again, I'm not sure how long it will take us to accomplish even this simple task. We have other areas in the courthouse where we're trying to finish courtrooms, and contractors are few and far between.
and then Grant, do you want to address the exact employees that you're or positions that you're putting?
There'll be a minimum of 4. Excuse me. And so I'll have to, we'll take a look. I don't know the square footage, Keith, is that for people? That's, I think I didn't know that, it's being walled off.
Yeah,
Where
it'll
it
be
is.
tight. It'll be tight. And if you look at this shaded area, that's assuming the relocation of the vending machines that currently occupy that vestibule.
And that was going to be out to where the elevated area is that's not used, right to the
Yeah.
west of the.
Entry doors would be flush with the south hallway wall
Mhm.
of the courthouse on the first floor or thereabouts.
So again, we'll go back and look at this again and see if it'll fit
Uh-huh.
that many people. I think, I knew there was gonna be some space used in here for storage, I believe, for another department. And so, yeah, and this again, the reason behind this is to us to get as many people as we possibly can on site, to allow for those folks who just get out of court and need to sign
Uh-huh.
up for Shine, sign up for community service, or come straight from the jail and need an ankle monitor, that we need as many people as we can on site. And so this at least puts some folks in there.
That's gonna be a pretty congested area right there. I mean, you got the 2 bathrooms right there. You got Cleo, who has his folks out there, and then, just to the south of this, where the old information desk is kind of a congregating area. I mean, it's gonna be
I think that's where you're planning on putting the
high traffic.
vending machines where the old the old
Okay.
information desk
So,
was, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that'll add even more congestion right there in that little bitty spot. Yeah, I wanna look at this. So that would be even back in the back of the snack bar area, take all of that stuff out.
When you talk about the back, the south outside wall of the courthouse has electrical mechanical equipment located there. There are storage closets. So when you look at that space from the hallway, the back wall would be what would be available. That would be the south wall.
Will there be room in there for Grant's staff to run a popcorn machine?
I think the question is would they want to run a popcorn machine?
I think they would love to run a popcorn machine.
Grant can do anything.
If they do that, some people will
Just
never,
don't close it too.
some people will never know that the vending moved if you ran a popcorn machine back there. All right. All right, so you wanted to go take a look at that, Cody, is that right? Get comfortable with that? No action today? Any other discussion? Keith, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. Or Grant?
Motion to receive report.
All right. Second? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item number 7, discussion possible action regarding potential replacement for the IT server from the Liebert AC cooling systems. Dane, is there any, or Keith?
Still shopping that one.
Okay, all right, no update. Is that right? Okay, all right. No action required. Item number 8, discussion possible action regarding scoping ARPA project 135.
A motion to defer item. I spoke with Mr. Sullivan. He caught me in BOCC, and Mr. Warren was out of town, so they requested that we defer this item so he has an opportunity to have a discussion with Mr. Barnes prior to having this discussion here.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 David, if you were waiting for this, I apologize for not telling you that ahead of time. I just didn't even think about it until right now. Okay.
Okay, item number 9, discussion update on progress of the elevators. Courthouse.
I need one comment on item 9. I'll give you good information when it comes available to me.
Okay, so we're not scheduled for a inspection? All right,
Keith?
no comment.
Keith, there was a question.
Oh, so we haven't scheduled a reinspection yet, correct?
No, but we've had contractors here over the weekend trying to remedy the faults that the inspector pointed out.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, Keith.
I'll make a motion to receive that report.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 10, discussion and possible action of owner's representative report on ARPA project presented by William White. Welcome.
Before Mr. White takes the floor here, I didn't think about this until just a minute ago as well. If at all possible, I think it might be nice if we have this discussion towards the beginning of our agenda. That way Mr. White and his folks don't have to sit through all of this other stuff. That's true. You do have the next meeting. Sorry. You're right.
Yes, proceed, please. Thank you.
Juvenile justice, the elevators as a project with one designer. They're progressing with the design, and hopefully we'll be ready at the end of the first quarter for putting it on the street and bidding it out. So we're making progress. Juvenile justice lobby, is still ahead of schedule. We haven't been able to put on roofing materials, but the roofing materials are on site and it's making very good progress. And we should uh, beat the completion date of May 30th. Social distancing, no change. Court clerk jury pavilion, as you stated, has been pushed back. Uh, Sheriff's Office, Midwest City substation, the final design is complete. My understanding, the equipment's ordered. We've reviewed it and they've made those changes. So we're on schedule to hopefully meet the requirements of May installation. And that's the goal for that. Clerk's books, we continue to plan on the scope requirements and then how that affects Annex 1. We've had discussions this week on how that may or may not proceed, but we're just monitoring that and its effects on first floor annex. We've made a recommendation for the annex security to go ahead and get the bids out and make probably an August, September start date for the contractor. So go ahead, bid the project, get everybody's submittals, plan the work, and then work the plan. So that would be our recommendation for that.
Is there any idea how long that the book relocation will take?
I'm not comfortable with that. I mean, there's so many elements. You know, we have security, we have public access, and then you have a structural review requirement depending on where they go. And so I originally it was scheduled for 30, 45 days, but as it's trying to find a location, it just depends on the location.
Okay.
It's really kind of hung up because we're taking prices right now on the asbestos removal.
Right.
But if we're, that's assuming they're moving the books one time out, so it's all available, and then bringing them back. If those books are staying here and they're just gonna be moved around 3 or 4 times, the asbestos guy has to break his work up 4 or 5 different ways. That's a whole separate type of bid. So it's got to be coordinated together, and we haven't found a place or a plan for where they're going to go.
When is that asbestos, you said bid, when are you anticipating that going out? Because when that goes out, you'll have to know whether it's gonna be
I can't
a
put it
one
out
shot.
until I know. It's a chicken and the egg thing.
And the reason why I ask the time frame is because if we put the annex security project out to bid for an August, September start date, then we need to walk backwards to determine what is the drop dead last day that we can start moving those books so that we can get that accomplished so that we can start the project when, when the bid
Correct.
document states.
And the idea obviously would be the east end of the clerk's books would be the first to move, allowing our project to proceed. Our goal would be to encumber the funds and plan the work so that we have no schedule or problems. But once the asbestos methodology is determined, then we can go ahead and point to phase 1 of the asbestos removal, if it's broken into phases, would be that east portion necessary for the first floor annex.
In the asbestos removal, just the east portion that we're that we're going to be taking over from the clerk's office. That was not originally contemplated in the monetary expense of this project, correct?
Yeah, the space we were taking over.
It was
It's
included?
in the front entrance project, yeah.
Okay, so it was, that asbestos piece was included in the other asbestos pieces for that project.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other would just be the western part of the books.
Right, but we have to prep before we can move and
Right.
whatever that is.
Right. Okay.
Also, you need to keep in mind that when this asbestos procedure is taking place, you have one narrow corridor to access all of the books on the west end. Should we suffer some kind of mishap and the corridor needs to be closed down, or certainly the HVAC needs to be shut down in such a way, I can't anticipate what I don't know, but what we've experienced on the 6th floor, I remember, when problems occur, we won't have access to that west end at all. And so that needs, I think, to be at least taken into consideration.
Could you not, if that occurred, could you not just funnel that traffic that is needing access to the books to the west end of the building and come through those doors that are
At that
normally
point, it
locked?
would be a DOL decision as to how we access that part of the building. They'll determine what we do.
Yeah, I mean, the best solution is to get all the books into one location that they are accessible outside of this particular, location. But
That was where we were headed at the last meeting that we had, where they'd be off-site. That way your heat and air is shut down, employees aren't in a situation with no heat and air. But we haven't found a place off-site for them to go that they're comfortable with. And we've paraded around a few sites, so we gotta keep looking for others.
okay, thank you.
So the sites that you've looked at, nothing's gonna be reconsidered. You're looking for another site that you haven't found yet, correct?
Is that safe to say, Keith? that What we've showed so far is rejected?
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at 2 possible sites, and we looked not only at the sites themselves, but the methodology for housing the books temporarily. You can use pallet racks, the cabinets that they already have. We looked at the warehouse that the court clerk occupies. Also, we looked at Lincoln as a possible site, just to understand what might be available. And so those were both those sites were rejected, yes.
Do you know what the issue was with Lincoln?
In the meeting, I think the location that we had discussed, it was the condition of the building, the condition of the space, and a rodent population that is unacceptable. I've not seen any.
Any potential rodent issue could be, well, it should be currently addressed,
And
correct?
they are. They are. I thought it was a good tour, though. I mean, we took 3 or 4 of the county clerk's staff, and they were able to see firsthand those locations and also the way the inventory is housed and stored. So I think it was a good visit, although it ruffled some feathers, I understand. That was not the intent.
Again, first floor annex is ready to go whenever we elect to put out those quotes. Our recommendation would be to put it out early and then make a start date later in the year.
And that recommendation is because of other projects from other places that are going online, right?
Well, multiple things. We have a lot of projects going on first quarter in the Oklahoma County area. We also have plans and specifications that are designated for 2023 equipment and fixtures. And so we'd like to not have to update all those. If we get that done in the first quarter, it shouldn't be a problem. If we wait past the first quarter, we'll have to respecify most of the equipment. And I mean, it's just work for the architect and engineer, which adds additional cost. So there's just some things like that that would be helpful to go ahead and get it on the street and secure those pieces of equipment and special orders.
Well, I think the creative nature with which you guys are approaching this on a get out to bid for a future start date in August, September, I think is a very good idea. And I think we need to get moving on that as soon as we possibly can so that we don't get stuck behind the 8 ball with a bunch of other projects that go out, and then we've got, a smaller vendor pool that's interested in our work because they're already tied up on other projects that they bid and got awarded. So I think us getting out is extremely important.
Drainage culverts, about 40% complete currently. Juvenile justice roof is substantially complete. We're having the manufacturer's warranty walk within the next 2 weeks, pending weather. Security's complete, camera security. Again, the elevators all in the same condition. Hopefully into first quarter bidding time. The behavioral health service facilities, the construction manager has been selected, and now we're just waiting architect schedules and location. Existing jail HVAC, the designer is engaged, and we are working through that currently. The jail roof replacement, that contract is in place with the Oklahoma Roofing, and also the metal portion of that roof, or both contracts are in place and will begin shortly. The loading dock, or what we call the loading dock area, that's being rescoped currently, and we're working to get that out for quote.
Any questions? I'll accept a motion to receive report.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Cassie, you're gonna have to do me manually. I accidentally clicked on the wrong button and exited completely out. So
All right. Item number 11, discussion and possible action to present an update on meetings of the Citizens Oversight Advisory Board.
They did meet and basically just had one item where they had a pretty good discussion with HOK, the architects, about spaces that they can come up with, layouts, adjacencies. Starting to get a good feel on how the design comes together. So like everyone else, just waiting on a site so we can advance along.
motion to receive report.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Citizen participation. All right. Any board comments?
No, thank you.
One.
No, thank you.
All right. None here. Any new business? All right. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Yeah, Cassie, I thought I was Xing out of the attachment and I X'd out of the meeting.
Ready? Yeah.
What?
Cody and Colton, you guys ready?
Yep.
All right. All right. Welcome to the meeting of the PBA. Meeting was properly posted on December 22nd. All members of the each is present. All right. Item number 1, discussion and possible action regarding minutes of December 11th. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, discussion and possible action regarding the ARPA capital projects, including unlimited design, start, completion dates, bid letting, project awards, and utilization of production management firm to OC. Stacy, do you want to defer, or do you have any?
I'll talk about one project. We've had some good meetings on the DA's transition to the ICB. We've got both architects engaged and having the joint meetings. I think there'll probably be a presentation for you at your next meeting on what they're coming up with, to see if you like that direction. And to fund that project construction-wise, 2/3 of that funding is coming from the bonds that you've talked or actually voted to sell on the garage. So we're gonna need that sooner than later, so I hope that's progressing. Because you've only got, I think, 2 years of rent set aside for the DA to be where they're at. And if we wanna meet that schedule, backing in, we're there.
All right, any questions for Stacy? Do you have a motion to receive report?
Second.
All right, it's been. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we've not voted.
I don't know if you mentioned, I'm sorry, I got a phone call there, but there is a presentation that we looked at. It was given to us with conceptual ideas for the exterior of the ICB. Do you want that presentation to come to this body or go directly to the PBA for consideration?
What was that again?
The architects presented a conceptual idea presentations to us as to what the exterior of the ICB might look like. It's a great presentation, and do you want it to come to this body or go directly to the PBA?
We brought all that stuff here first.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor to receive report?
Aye.
Item number 3, discussion prospect regarding update from the owner's representative for PBA ARPA projects. Welcome again.
Good morning again. Emergency op, project continues. Schematic design is obviously approved, and they're developing the drawings. I think Dave and his group have been working through some very significant details on their requirements, and so it's gone very well and should be ready probably middle of January, late January for the DD development. Elevator projects, as stated earlier, are in design, and we're looking at end of the first quarter for that completion. And then camera security, as stated before, we have a submittal in to Stacy's office and the purchasing for a change order on the convenience electrical requirements for the garages. It's about 20, I think it ended up being around $26,000. This will provide a 110 power for the new security systems. ICB, as stated earlier, the design team has some recommendations and conceptual plans on the exterior skin. That looks great to me. A lot of glass, it'll change the whole appearance of the building. They're coordinating with a small group on the interior design, so that's working together pretty well. A lot of communication there.
All right, any questions?
Move to receive.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank
Aye.
you.
Any citizen participation? You're right, comments from either district? All right, none here. Any new business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to get out of here.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Motion to get.